Hello? Oh, let me turn you up. I'm having a hard time. Maybe I should grab my headphones. 1 second. Can you hear me better now? Oh, I can't hear you at all now. Can you say something? Oh, now I can. Barely. It's kind of like cutting out or really, really soft, but I can slightly hear it. Yeah, a little bit. And if it's just mine, I can try turning up my volume. We can see when everyone else comes in if. But yeah, I can't really hear you now again.
I was saying I was trying to get my outline all together here because I have them like on 3 different files and I need to just put them all in one.
Ashlyn hasn't gotten her invite or hasn't shown up yet.
I sent
Does
it
she?
to the only one I have, which is her BYU email. Do you have her Gmail?
Oh, you just got louder. I do
Oh,
have her Gmail.
okay.
Um, Let me read it off to you. I have it in my email.
Okay.
Second. So it's Ashlyn, so ASHLYN
Mm-hmm.
dot Jorgensen, JORGENSEN at
Okay.
Gmail.
Okay. I didn't have her Gmail. I just had her her BYU email. Maybe that's why.
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
Perfect.
Sorry, guys, just totally spaced. I'm like, hello, my BYU Idaho email. What am I thinking? Okay. So sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Are we just waiting on
Ayanda.
Ayanda, yeah, she was just her and I just had a meeting, and I think she was trying to do something with her kids. So
Okay.
she should be on in just a second.
How's your guys' portfolio coming along?
Coming.
It's coming.
I feel like you do so much and then you just like I still have so much more to do. Slowly.
Pretty much.
Have you guys taught twice now? Or 2 people or once?
We haven't taught anybody yet. We just submitted our first lesson plan last week, and I think next week we're gonna teach our first lesson. So, have you guys taught anybody yet?
We did yesterday, last night.
How did that go?
Chill.
It was good. It was good. We prepared like a ton more material than because they just both talked a lot, which was great. But we just next time we'll have to plan out. But yeah, they were great. So it was fun.
Did you guys meet with Paige and her husband? I don't know her husband's name. Yeah.
Wesley.
Wesley. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we did. I think it's good that we prepared a lot of material. I think it's just
yeah.
you know, you can never like really gauge how much are people going to talk, like what type of, like what questions will like spark more interest than others. And so then we had to like kind of like, you know, without communicating that we're going to cut things out, we just had to cut things out, and it was good. Good thing we're on the same wavelength, you know?
Yeah. No kidding.
But
yeah, it was good though.
Well, good. All right, so let's go ahead. Ayanda's here now. So let's go ahead and move forward. I volunteered to sort of like, what's the word? Like,
lead.
Yeah, lead. That's a word. Lead the meeting so that we could kind of, I don't know, have a little bit more like flow. I feel like last time we were kind of like, who's supposed to talk next, you know? So from week 4, I'll just start like some things that I really liked. I kind of going off of what you guys just said, like, you know, in the book it talked about balancing leader talk versus participant talk. And I really liked that because I think that is important. Like, I know for me, when I'm in a class setting, like, I feel like I get so much more out of it when it's like, you know, a collaborative thing, like more of, you know, more participation. And I think it helps the participants think more too, you know, and like, they're not just listening blankly. Was there anything that you guys particularly liked from that lesson?
Yeah, kind of along what you were saying. Also just like asking them questions. I think the question was, what is one specific principle you took away from the theory and weave into your lessons to improve your teaching effectiveness? And I thought that with, you know, making sure that they also have time to talk and you're not like over like talking, is that having them explain the principle back in their own words or whatever you're teaching, because a lot of times people just understand surface knowledge of it. And so you'll be able to gauge like, okay, they didn't really get what I was saying, or they can learn from what they're saying themselves, because they'll probably say it in a different way than the teacher taught it. And I've like a lot of times in school when the teacher's like ask me to re-explain something, I'll explain it and then I'll start to realize it in my own way because I'll have to think in a different way to express it. So, yeah.
That's a really good point. I hadn't even remembered that, so thanks. What about Jill or Ayanda? Is there anything that you particularly liked from that reading?
Just from what you guys said, like with just having somebody repeat back. I remember when I was a missionary, we used to teach our investigators, and then we would have them reteach us the lesson. Like, so after they were baptized, some of the first lessons that we would have with them, we would be like, okay, so now you teach us the restoration. Now you teach us the plan of salvation. And, you know, as recent converts, it was just something really nice for them to start applying the principles of the gospel in their lives, in their own minds as well. So I think that is something that's really powerful. And something else with regards to that question, because I was also just thinking about the ideas about teaching. One of the ideas or the things that is important when we teach is the questions and the kinds of questions that we ask. Because obviously, if we ask bad questions, we don't get as much out of them. But if we ask inspired and good questions, we not only get good responses, but also they're able to learn something within themselves as well. So that was something that I really liked and something that I feel that I want to apply as well, just asking effective and good questions.
I agree.
Yeah, that was the main thing. All three of you pretty much hit on the main points. Just teaching for understanding instead of like teach people, not lessons. But like the whole purpose is to help them understand what you're learning or what they're learning. And so just I loved the different techniques that it talked about in that. chapter of how to help them learn. Also, in that same week, is that also the week that we read from Teaching the Gospel?
Yeah.
I kind of, to just build off of that, it was really interesting to me to just kind of review from like a different perspective, different ways of teaching. And that as members of the church, we can expect the Spirit to be teaching with us, like wherever we go. Like we have the gift of the Holy Ghost. And so including that in like what we teach, like, so sometimes we're in total secular places where we can't like bring up scriptures and things like that. Like maybe in the future when in our careers, but we can still pray and ask for inspiration of what to teach these people or what do these people need, and still have the Spirit with us to help us teach about family, because family is central to God's plan, and He wants all of His children to have stronger families, even if they're not members, you know. And so being able to use that and understand that we're defending the family secularly through that. So
I agree.
I like that point too. That was going to be my next question, was like, what did you guys like from the gospel learning thing? I wanted to say also that kind of like off of what Ayanda was saying and Ashlyn, like I liked that quote from or I don't know if it was exactly a quote, but it said like the relationship between the educator and the learner is maybe more important than the content of the lesson. And it says the process is critical. Like the process of learning is, you know, more important than necessarily the content, you know, in that relationship. But yeah, I also really liked what you said, Jill, because it's true. Like we can teach by the Spirit, and even in secular settings, like I think people recognize that feeling, and you don't necessarily have to say like, are you feeling that right now? You know what I mean? But you can think people recognize like feelings that touch them really deeply, and you know, maybe they might not know that that's the Spirit touching their heart, but it is. So was there any other things that you guys liked from the gospel learning?
Well, I think just quick, like how you said in like secular situations, you can obviously have the Spirit as well. Like on my mission, I remember my mission president told me that even when we're not just talking about Jesus Christ or about the gospel, the Spirit can still abide and touch the hearts of others. And so I think that's super important, like you were mentioning, Chantel, about in a secular situation or setting. I mean, you can still have the Spirit, and the Spirit can still teach, and which is one of His main roles, is helping us to understand things and like certain concepts. And so I just really like the focus on, you know, inviting the Spirit and having the Holy Ghost, regardless if the person's LDS or not. If you have it, I just think, yeah, I think it's super effective in your teaching.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ashlyn. And I think one of the other things that I liked from the reading is the fact that we have to earn the Spirit, right? So you were talking about the fact that whether you teach as in a secular way or to a person who's in the church, they'll still feel your aura, your general sense of, you know, that you present. And we qualify for that feeling or for that inspiration through living the gospel. And that's what the book was talking about, how we need to live the gospel, because when we do that, the gospel will help us to be able to teach effectively. I don't know how many times I prayed before I was in my prayer preparing the lesson plan and things like that. Okay, so I'm just going to read something from scriptures, you know, just so that I can be able to get inspiration to do this thing that has nothing to do technically with the gospel, but I rely on the Lord to help me. So I feel like I need to qualify for that so that I can be able to be inspired to teach the people the right thing.
Oh man, yeah, I agree with that so much. Like I loved in that I like put these things down in my outline from teaching by the Spirit, and it just made me think of it like it says that the the Spirit can inspire a person in what to say in the very hour it is needed. He can carry truth to the hearts of the people and soften them. And he can enhance a person's skill and abilities to perform a task. And I think that really applies to us, like as the educators, because if we can pray for the Spirit to help us teach, like we'll be able to say what we need to say in the moment. We'll be able to carry that, or say something that's going to carry truth to their hearts. Sorry, my little girl just walked in. Mommy, I want to go potty. Okay, go potty. Go ahead. Why are you using that chair? Just go potty, okay? The light's on. Sorry.
Okay.
So do you guys want to move on to week 5?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So was there anything you guys liked from that? I'll just start. Something I really liked was the idea of including our own stories into things. Like I've been to family life education type things in my hometown before, and one of the ones I went to, the lady who was teaching it, she used a lot of personal stories. Like the one I went to was on Love and Logic parenting, and she talked a lot about her experiences with her own kids and using Love and Logic, and I really liked it because it felt like, I don't know, I think when you share your own stories, it's sort of like humbling for the other people to hear, because they're like, oh, okay, like she doesn't know everything, like, because I think, I don't know, people might look at us and think like, oh, they've done all this schooling and stuff and they have all these great resources, but like in the real life world, like how do these things apply, and they can hear like, look, this is how I've used them and this is how it's worked or it's not worked. And I think that's really important. And I also think it kind of goes back to that relationship with the participants. Like when we share our stories, it makes us more personable and it makes us have like a better relationship with them.
I agree. Just Jill, go ahead. I saw you.
It's okay. Well, mine's just something that I learned from week 5. So if you have to build off of that, go for it.
Yeah, just a quick thought. I love how you said, I also think like personal stories. In my outline I quoted, it mentioned in chapter 6, it said, as family life educators are open with their own imperfections as parents, spouses, and family members, they encourage and accepting we are all in this together climate that increases participants' sense of safety. And I think, like you mentioned, I think it's so easy for a participant or anyone that's attending like a professional setting to look up to the speaker, to the person presenting and be like, oh my gosh, like she knows everything. Her life's probably perfect. Everything's probably great. And then have that sense of like doubt, like I will never be able to do this because I'm such a terrible, whatever, like the natural man inside of us. But I think, like you mentioned, Chantel, like it really it creates that climate within, the teaching setting that, no, look, you and I, we're equals. I've just researched probably more about it and I just want to share it with you, but I'm still working on this and I still have, faults and mishaps and whatever it might be. But yeah, it definitely, lets them know that you are on the same page and then they feel more open to wanting to apply what you're teaching and stuff.
Yeah, I think just off of that and kind of lead into what I was thinking was one way that, like, when you're given so much information, a lot of times people can feel overwhelmed. And as you hear like different examples of things, it can help. And another thing that stuck out to me from the readings was to do role plays or like case studies, like give them the opportunity to think and to do something. I just remember like when I was learning how to be a missionary, I was like, oh yeah, I know how to teach and I know the restoration. But my trainer was like, oh, then let's do it, and then I realized that it was a little bit harder than I was expecting. And just giving them the opportunity to practice saying what they want to say to their child or what they want to say to their spouse. Even though it's like you can even put it in like a lighter setting. or maybe do a case study that could be a little funny so that they don't feel as awkward or as intense, but it gives them the opportunity to practice parenting or practice being a spouse after you've taught a principle and shared a few examples.
I like that.
So.
I also liked like some of the other teaching tools that they talked about, like including movie clips or like video clips into things, because like I had teachers that did that in high school and stuff, and I always like loved it. I don't know if it was just sort of like, oh, it's a different, I'm not just being lectured at or whatever, but I also think because when you see it and you can see the emotion in the actors' faces and things, like it just kind of makes it more real for some reason. So I'm hoping to, like in one of my practicum lessons, I'm hoping to sort of include some of that stuff. I know that Ayanda did put some video clips in one of her presentations, and so I really liked that.
I agree. Oh, one of our kids are crying. It's okay. No, but I do agree with you, Chantel. I really think that just like almost like a change of scenery, you know, they just don't want to be talked at, that they more so, because that sticks with them. You know, when you see pictures, you know, you remember things because like of a visual concept or whatever, but a video, yeah, definitely. We shared a video yesterday in our presentation. It was like a short, you know, minute and a half. I think it like just the change of like, we were speaking at them, we were asking them questions, you know, we're going to have you read a quote, but now let's have you just watch something for a minute. So it's not us just talking at you. So.
That was good. Yeah.
Well, were there any other of the things from that lesson that you guys want to discuss? Maybe some of the gospel teaching tools or anything else?
Hi, sorry guys.
Okay.
They were fighting. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so the one thing that I picked up from the, I think it was lesson 5, with the different teaching tools and the different skills, the conclusion I think says the tools that we choose to use are like a vehicle, something like that. It was like the vehicle that we use to deliver the material to the people that we teach. And I thought that was such a nice analogy, like what you choose in the vehicle and how we present that vehicle to them is how they can be able to apply it in their life. So, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that is a really good analogy. I don't know how I can like read something and just not like remember things, but so we'll go ahead and move to week 6. I really loved like the sound marital house theory. I don't know, you guys have probably all taken that. I think it was like a requirement to take the marriage class before we did the practicum, so you guys probably studied that book by John Gottman about like the making a marriage work, and he kind of talks about that whole thing in his book about like the sound marriage house and all that. But I really like that, and I actually kind of use that as like, because I'm doing one of my practicum lessons is on like relationship literacy skills, I guess you could say. So I kind of use that as like a foundation. But I also really liked in that same section of the book, there was a part where they talked about caring days. And I never heard about that before, where couples identify specific acts that they would like their spouse to do for them that communicates love, and then make an effort to do those things on a daily basis, like writing a love note or, you know, making an effort to say I love you or whatever. But I really like that because I like that it's intentional, because I think that marriage has to be intentional, especially after you have children. Or even if you don't have children yet, but you're both going to school and working or whatever, like life is so busy and it's easy to put marriage on the back burner. And so anyways, I just really liked that, that it was like an intentional effort, you know?
I like that. I've never really thought of it that way, but now that I am, I mean, it makes some, like whatever your spouse might do for you or whatever, it's so much more meaningful when they purposely do it instead of just that. You know, like, I just happened to get this for you, but like, I know this was your favorite and I wanted to get this for you, or I like that.
Was there anything else that you guys really liked from that lesson?
And this is just this last week's reading, correct?
Yes.
So we got to like choose a chapter, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. I chose the marriage one.
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember reading any of that, but
Yeah,
I was like
sorry.
looking through my notes. That was great, totally great. Um,
So what chapter did you guys all read? That would be good to find out.
I did chapter 10 about parenting education. But
I did chapter 8 about the flourishing people make better family members.
The same as Chantel.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we share stuff from it, or? I mean,
Yeah.
I can share something that I liked from the week before that, just about like in the gospel perspective of it. Just on a like quick side note, it talked about how to follow the Lord's model of teaching. And I just really liked how it discussed, you know, and in the scriptures, it always talks about seeking, asking, and knocking. Like the Lord always like knocked. Someone was always like asking, and the Lord always knocked. And so like, hold on, does that make sense to you guys? So like, in a sense, it was like creating a lesson plan that makes your participants like ask, you know, like what is this, or how can I do this? And then having answers to help them, you know, having their own questions and own things they want to learn. And then like the Lord knocks and answers. And it said, just a quote from it just said, plan a discussion so the students are seeking, asking, and knocking. And then the teacher and the spirit can work together to help students receive truth and understanding. Have things open to their understanding and draw closer to their Savior. And so I just think in a sense, like when we are teaching, that a lot of it, if we're creating an environment where they're seeking to learn more and then they're asking their own questions, and we're able to like answer, I think like the Lord will work through us to give those answers. I mean, like in all missionary discussions, you know how we do those. So that's just like something that I liked from the gospel perspective of the week before.
Cool, thanks for sharing.
Thank you. I like that. Yeah. Another thing I learned from the chapter that I read was the importance of. I was able to myself and also to the people that we taught. So it talked about the importance of individual well-being and how the well-being of one person affects the well-being of their family. And so I first of all applied it to myself, and how if I'm well as an individual in every aspect of my life, then my family functions properly as well, because they don't do like me as like a crazy dragon lady that always because nothing's going well in some area of my life. And so the people that we teach, I applied it in that way because we're helping them to be able to establish wellness in their lives in one aspect or another. So the family life education that we give them is hopefully going to help them find that balance in the area that they feel like they're struggling in, and we can be able to help them. I just want to read a little bit of a quote from here. It says, scholars have discovered countless ways for all of us to live better lives. We know enough about flourishing today that each person can find a way to greater happiness and productivity. So we have these tools and we have this research, and we're not obviously like we're solving all their problems, but if we can be able to help them in one area of their lives and help them learn something that can improve that area, then they can be able to be more better equipped to help their families that area as well.
I like that a lot. Actually, the chapter that Ashlyn and I read talked a little bit about that too. Like they had this, I don't remember what the acronym stood for, but it was like NERMEM, core components. And one of their core components was care for self. And I really liked that it included that in there, because I think that is like self-care is a huge part of our relationships. Like I'm doing this internship for this group called Whole Fit right now. And as a part of the internship, like, I mean, the whole idea of it is like systems theory, where like, you know, our body is made up of systems. And so one thing that we do is going to affect all the different systems in our bodies. And then beyond our bodies, it's going to affect our relationships, and it's going to affect our jobs, and it's going to affect so many things. And, you know, because like, for example, if you decide to go for a run, it's going to help you to feel better individually. It's going to help your blood flow. It's going to help your brain functioning. And it's going to help your mood. And then that's going to go beyond your own self, and it's going to affect your relationships. Because if you're in a better mood, then you're going to have better relationships. And, you know, it just kind of goes from there. And so I really like that too. I think that's a huge part of just our well-being in general, is self-care.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just going to completely change the subject to my chapter. That's okay. Sorry. I'm like, and no real tie-in. But I read chapter 10, which was about parenting education. And kind of just like briefly summarize it, it was talking about, or what I got from it, was about how you need to understand like what parents already know and are doing, like in your audience. Figure out what they need to know and need to be doing, and then teach it to them in a way that's not like demeaning or like putting them down, because a lot of like parenting is hard and it's exhausting because every day you're doing the same thing over and over again. And so if you just like give them so much about parenting, they'll become overwhelmed and not really be able to apply any of it. It was kind of like, as I was learning, like, there's like 7 steps of like, consider the parenting, like the parents that you're targeting, consider like the foundation of the theories that you're learning, considering the delivery format, just like make sure that the materials are easy to use, just basically keeping in mind that most of the time parents are stressed and tired and overwhelmed. And so as someone who's teaching about parenting, you want to be careful to not like overwhelm them or give them too much or make them feel like they're being bad parents. Like they want to be uplifted, not talked down to. It's so I thought that was really interesting, just to be able to uplift them and help them apply the things that they're learning in their parenting right then. So
I like that. I think it is, yeah. I think it, like you were mentioning, parenting, yeah, can probably be some of the same stuff every day, and it probably can be discouraging. And then if you go to a class and someone's just, you know, talking down, or not talking down, but you feel that way, you get more discouraged. But keeping that, I think, yeah, importantly, just like keeping those parents in mind and kind of like what they're going through, I think will help the way that you teach and like effectively integrate things.
I think that kind of comes back to like sharing your own stories too, because like I remember one time I went to this class after I had my son. He was my first baby, and I was feeling like really overwhelmed. And they offered these classes through the hospital that I took where you could bring your baby, and they had like different topics. And I was having a really hard time breastfeeding, and I saw that they had a class on breastfeeding, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this class because I need some help. And I remember feeling like such a failure. And like one of the other moms there, she started like bawling, crying, and because she felt like a failure too, you know, and she was having a really hard time. And I thought it was really cool because the person who was teaching the class, she was like, okay, everybody raise a hand. Who's having a hard time breastfeeding? And like every person except for one, and there was probably a dozen women in the room, raised their hand. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not alone. Like even though I feel like a failure, like I'm not a failure. And so I think like sharing your own stories and just saying like, yeah, this is hard and you have a right to feel discouraged can be like a really, I don't know, sort of like uplifting thing and sort of like solidarity.
Yeah.
So we sort of inspire them to improve instead of make them feel bad for what they're not doing.
Right, and that's what family life education is all about, you know, giving skills so they can do better and not like making them feel like failures.
Making them feel worse.
Yeah. And I think even it's good to like just commend them for being there, you know, and like seeking out the skills, because a lot of people don't, and a lot of people just rely on their own instincts, and that's not always the best thing. It's really good to like seek out learning, and I think commending them for doing that is a really important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not getting lazy parents coming to those classes. You're getting people who want to improve. So, yeah.
Totally. And you may even be getting parents who are at their wits' end,
Yeah.
who are just desperately needing something.
Typically,
Well,
yeah.
we've been talking for about 36 minutes or so. So I think we're probably pretty good. If there's anything else anybody wants to say.
No, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
guys. Thank you, Chantel, for taking the lead.
Yeah. No problem.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.